Today, we're talking about salon business models because I can't tell you how many DMs I get that say, wait, is this legal? Is this normal? So freedom equals responsibility. But the myth here is that booth rent is always the next level, but it's not if you don't have consistent clientele. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to share an important lesson that became clear to me running my own business. Growth isn't just about skill, it's about having the right system. I know exactly how hard it is to juggle clients, staff, and strategy all at once, which is why I love Gloss Genius. It's the all-in-one platform every salon owner needs to scale. It doesn't just help you manage your day-to-day like other options. Gloss Genius actually does the work for you that you need to grow. Whether it's rebooking that brings clients back or automating marketing campaigns that fill empty chairs, this platform never stops looking out for you. An added bonus is that it actually is easy to use. So no where do I click moments for you and your team. Clients don't have complicated logins just to book an appointment. It's smooth, it's a smart design, and it works. If you've been looking for a way to do all of that, go to the link in my show notes and use the code SUCCESSFUL to get 50% off your first 2 months of their Gold or Platinum plan to see for yourself. Gloss Genius is all about growth and less busy work. All right, let's get into the episode. Welcome back to the Successful Stylist Academy podcast. If you're new here, hi, I'm Ambrosia Carey. I help hairstylists and salon owners build profitable, sustainable careers without burning out, undercharging, or accidentally committing payroll crimes. I'm just kidding. Casual things. Just super casual. On this podcast, we talk real business. So no gatekeeping here, no talk about how this is how we've always done it. That's simply nonsense. We want to go through with clarity. And today we're talking about salon business models because I can't tell you how many DMs I get that say, wait, is this legal? Is this normal? Why am I 1099 but required to be here 40 hours? Is this booth rent better? Is commission a trap? So pause for a moment and take a deep breath. If you've ever accepted a salon job and then 3 months later thought, this feels off, you're not crazy. So we're going to demystify this just a little bit. So we're going to start out with a commission model, which is an employee-based model, right? Commission means you are typically a W-2 employee. The salon withholds taxes, sets policies, sets the pricing, sets the schedule, and provides infrastructure. You perform the service, you earn a percentage. It's pretty straightforward, right? Why it works is because commission is fantastic when you're building a clientele or you want education and mentorship, or you don't want to be managing inventory, booking systems, payroll, and all that jazz. You want stability. You show up, you do hair, you leave. There's value in that, right? The myth is that commission means you're giving away your money, which is simply not true. You're paying for marketing, systems, space, support, stability. That's not a loss. That is complete leverage. The other thing I want to state about this is that commission is built really beautifully for somebody who simply wants to show up, do the artistry, and leave, and they know that everything else is taken care of, which feels really lovely. If you are not prone to want to, let's say, balance your books, or if you're not somebody who wants to do payroll, or if you're somebody who doesn't want to stock inventory, let's say that you don't want to have to answer texts or emails from clients on your time off. There's a lot of components to it, and I don't think that I really need to go through each and every one of them, but there is freedom in that foundation. And if a salon owner does this part well, then you will thrive as a stylist, right? And they are somebody who can help set up the system so that you can have a long-term career, and ideally they're going to help you also set up long-term benefits as well. So that would be things like paid vacation and actually having a retirement account in the future. And if you can have health benefits as kind of a bonus. I know that that's not typical, but again, if you have somebody who's in charge of that infrastructure of the salon and they can run the business efficiently and effectively, rest assured that you can show up and do your thing and you've got someone else managing that for you. All right, now we're going to go into booth rental. So I feel like that's pretty straightforward, right? Like when we think of commission, and by the way, I want to preface this by saying that I had a commission model for most of my career. and it served me really well. I had a 401k plan set up with my very first salon. And then when I actually became a salon owner, it was so important to me that I wanted to make sure that everyone under my home, AKA my salon, I wanted to make sure that everyone also had those similar kind of benefits. So started exploring that once I could afford it. Because it does cost money, right? Because the salon typically is going to be matching you, and you are putting some money in from your paycheck, which is pre-tax, by the way, which is very important. And then you've got the salon matching, which is free money, by the way. So that's all really important in the long-term sustainable, life plan for you. So that way, you know that when you're showing up and you're doing the work that you love and enjoy, you not only just get paid for that work, but you also know that at the end of your whenever you do wanna retire, whenever you can retire, I should say, then you actually have a nest egg waiting for you on the other side, and that's really freeing. Okay, now we're gonna go into booth rental, which is an independent model. Booth rental just means that you rent a space and you operate your own business. You set the pricing, the schedules, choose products, pay your own taxes, market yourself, you pay rent, you keep the revenue. And the reason why this works is if you're fully booked and you're business savvy, booth rent can dramatically increase your take home income. You can keep more, you can control more, you can own more. But the myth here is that booth rent is always the next level, but it's not if you don't have consistent clientele. Freedom sounds amazing until 3 clients cancel and then rent is due, right? So freedom equals responsibility. You are essentially the CEO, accountant, the marketing team, and sometimes the therapist. And yes, sometimes it's lonely. So for people that operate this way, there's somebody who is really good at organization and management. They're effective in their communication. They have some pretty clear boundaries around their business. If you have a hard time with boundaries, sometimes the independent model is not the best. And also, if you're somebody who is good at setting up those processes ahead of time, so that way you're not finding yourself answering texts at like 8 or 9 at night when you should be spending time during your downtime or your weekends, then that's also very freeing. But where we can get in the weeds a little bit is if you are an independent model or you're thinking of being an independent model and you don't realize the time leak that can happen around those quote unquote working hours. And that is one of the biggest things that I address when I talk to independent models, or I should I say for people who are independent contractors or booth rent or salon suite owners. You all kind of sit under the same umbrella, right? Most of the time when people come to me, they say, well, number one, they're not sure if they're pricing correctly. Pricing is always a question. Number two, they have a hard time with boundaries. So they find themselves working more days than they actually want to. And number three, they also don't have a long-term business plan for themselves, meaning they don't have a retirement in mind in the near future or even in the far future. They're just kind of just staying afloat. They're trying to make ends meet, or they're making good money, but they don't really know what to do with that money either. So all of those things can kind of get us in this little like swirly contraption. I don't even know what the heck this swirly contraption is, but it's sometimes it's something that can get us into a bit of a spiral, and then we're not really sure how to get out of it. There are ways of getting out of it, of course, but it does take preparation and timing and just really looking at the things that you're avoiding. And sometimes it's hard to see it because you've been avoiding it for so long. And typically, too, it is something that is worth getting together with a coach, and it doesn't have to be me, by the way, just getting together with somebody who's able to kind of get a bird's eye view on the scope of your business, how you operate, some of the leaks in the ship that might be sinking your ship, and coming up with a long-term investment plan for yourself, and then working backwards and containing it. And what I like to do is put a container of 90 days around it. 90 days for me feels like attainable. No matter what the goal is, 90 days is something I can wrap my head around. I have learned, and by the way, I also I mean, I learned a lot of things. I learned, first of all, as an adult that I have ADHD. I have, perimenopausal brain. So it's very fascinating what our brains can do. It's very fascinating that we are able to do so many different tasks within our business. I applaud us as an industry because we are able to figure out the hard things when it comes to communication, to creating art, to making somebody's day, to running an effective business, to growing ourselves, to putting ourselves out on social media, to being vulnerable, to being a counselor to our clients. I mean, there's just like so many things that we do, thinking about sales, thinking about growth, filling in time slots that are emptying out, holding our boundaries. Like there's just so many parts to what we do. And if you're really good at managing all those things and you're able to remove your personal self from your business and you see the business as something that you are nurturing and taking care of, that yes, there's an extension of you that it is held to the business, but it's not you as a person. And if you're able to do that effectively, that is when some of the best mentors and leaders are bred. That is when you almost have a calling to do this, right? For the rest of us who are not built that way, then those are things that you can learn. And I think most people that come to me, they say that they just don't have the confidence or the skill set yet. And it's so important that you know that. That's the important piece, is that you notice that you don't have yet the confidence. And one of the things I like to say, which I feel like I'm just gonna, tear a hole through this, is it, confidence is competence. And once you feel competent in something, then you will realize, like, wow, I actually do feel more confident in this. Now, there's like basically two columns here when we talk about a business entity in our industry. But there's now kind of a third bracket, which is the hybrid model. The hybrid model is actually what I last had. My previous salon was a hybrid model. Now, hybrid means that it's a mixture of employees and renters, or a blended financial structure. So hybrid can be kind of strategic, but clarity is everything, because hybrid is where creative interpretations of labor law starts happening. And of course, it depends on what state you're in or country you're in, for that matter. But when things get creative with payroll, the IRS does not laugh about that. It's not a laughing matter. So the way that I ran my hybrid program is W-2 employees under one roof. And then we also had a booth rental agreement for the stylists who were independent. And when they got commission, they did earn a 15% commission pay on each of the products that they would sell, retail items. But the commission check would be split and sent to them or given to them quarterly. And that has to be separated from rent. You have to make sure that there's some clear like guidelines and verbiage around rental agreement, because worst thing that can happen is that there's open for interpretation and something happens within your business that you didn't think about. Or if somebody is sue happy and they decide to file a lawsuit against you, I mean, that would be worst case scenario. But if there isn't clear lines and distinction amongst how you are operating your business, then that's when it can kind of get away from you too. So having that agreement, having it signed by you and by the person that's renting from you, and also just having like a balloon clause or shotgun clause, something in there that if something is violated against this agreement that you're putting together, then this is the next course of action that would happen. So obviously that's when you would probably want to maybe lightly have one written up online. You could use AI for that, but I would say try to have it looked over by an attorney. I mean, it's only a few $100. Have an attorney look at it and just make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. That way you have peace of mind, because the worst thing you could have is something is, misconstrued or taken out of alignment, and then you wind up in court. And I do have some friends that have been taken to court before. So anyway, now let's go into the what's legal versus what's creative. And again, I'm not a legal advisor and I don't really know all of the rules with this. So I'm not trying to act like a know-it-all. I'm just sharing the information that I personally know. So we're going to simplify this a little bit. You're either a W-2 or an independent contractor, right? There's no such thing as a 1099 employee. That's not, I mean, people think that they're being innovative when they're doing that, but that is absolute confusion. And the control test is asking this one question: who controls work? If the salon controls your scheduling, your pricing, your required hours, your product line, your meetings, your dress code, you are functioning as an employee. And if you control those things, you're functioning as an independent. You cannot have employee level control with contractor level taxes. That's not hybrid. That's complete tax misclassification. And if you get audited or you get reported, then that's going to be major fines and that can really hurt you. As a matter of fact, Drea personally talked about this very vulnerably and very beautifully in a previous podcast. I'm going to try to find that one and link it in the show notes because that was that was a major eye opener for her because she didn't know. And by the way, when she learned all this, there was no such thing as social media then. It wasn't around yet. And there was no such thing as AI. So, we're at least in the terms that we use it today. So, she really she really just didn't know. She thought that she was giving a big break to her employees. She didn't realize that it was misclassification. So, unfortunately, she got the rug pulled from underneath her. She essentially lost her business, and just because she was taxed to death. I mean, death by taxes, and it can happen. And unfortunately, it was such a big learning lesson for her. But I love that she was so raw and vulnerable to share that piece of information with people because this is how we learn and this is how we grow in this industry. This is how we become better salon owners, better leaders, better providers for our clients. Okay. So we're going to go through a case study where let's talk about this, proverbial 1099 unicorn here. We're going to call her Jenna. Jenna takes a job at a modern hybrid salon. She's told, you'll be commissioned, but you're 1099. Best of both worlds. Sounds magical, right? She works 40 required hours, mandatory meetings, must use the salon pricing, must use the salon color. There's no control over her schedule, but she pays full self-employed taxes. At tax season, she owes thousands. She's confused. What happened? She was functioning as an employee, but classified as an independent. The salon saved payroll taxes. She absorbed them, and that's not hybrid. So the problem here, and the reason why some salon owners do this is because they think it's a workaround with having to pay the taxes from the salon business. And basically what they're doing is passing the buck on to the person who, they're the ones who are left holding the bag at the end of the day. It's not as if the salon owner is being manipulative here. At least I would like to think not. There might be some out there. I don't know. But I think for the most part, when people do it, they don't do it to try to gotcha to the other person. I think it's just that they're thinking about their business and how they can save money. And they think that they're being clever by doing this. But unfortunately, this is illegal. It is 100% illegal. So that just can't be done. Now let's go into another case study. We're going to talk about we're going to name this person Marcus. Marcus leaves a commission salon. He's 70% booked. He sees friends posting about keeping 100%. He jumps into booth rent immediately. The first month is fine. The second month, 2 big clients move, 1 relocates, 3 cancel consistently. He still owes rent. And now he realizes commission gave him walk-ins or referrals through the salon. It gave him overflow. So he didn't fail here. He just underestimated the shift that would need to happen, right? So booth rent works perfectly when you're prepared for that variability. So kind of just piggybacking off of a previous conversation that I was having with you about independent stylists is you have to be constantly in growth mode. And the reason why is because natural attrition will apply. And when you are, hand to mouth, basically, in the very beginning, and you start getting your regular clientele down, you can lessen it a little bit. You can kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit. But then keep in mind, you don't just have one gas pedal. You've got several. So if you are working on retention, let's say, as your gas pedal, and then you get your retention up to 80%, then you're like, okay, I'm good on my retention, but now I need to work on my books, cleaning up my books. Or now I need to work on getting new clients in my chair. Or now I need to work on maybe bringing an assistant in. And I have to put a training program together for this assistant. And now I want to get to a point where I can have a second chair so that that assistant has somewhere that they can move to and they can start taking some of my clients that I'm not able to get into. So there's always going to be several gas pedals, basically, so to speak, when you're independent, which can be fun. But I think sometimes what can happen is that it's really easy to get your foot off the gas and you get comfortable, you start coasting, and before you know it, you are no longer in coast mode. And then you look at your gas and you're like, oh crap, I don't have enough gas to get me to the next gas station. That's a really elaborate scenario. I don't know why I just went down that road, but anyway, no pun intended. Okay. But regardless, I think you get to my drift. If you are independent, then just understand this, that there's no one gas pedal. You can't take your foot off the gas for too long. Yes, there can be moments where you can coast, but rest assured, it's time to get back in the saddle again and just keep going, because your business will start growing backwards if you don't stay on top of all those things. And if you get to a comfort range with one thing, then just know that there's another thing waiting there that needs a little bit more nurturing. All right, so let's talk about a different scenario here. Let's talk about a salon owner, shall we? We're going to call her Stephanie. Stephanie runs a commission salon. Her top stylist leaves to go independent. That happens all the time, right? So she panics and she converts to booth rent to keep everyone. But then she still wants brand consistency. She still wants meetings. She still wants unified pricing. She still wants control. So she creates strong recommendations, but they're not optional. Now the renter feels controlled. The owner starts to build resentment. And then the culture begins to essentially collapse. Stephanie didn't need renters. She needed to restructure the value. And hybrid only works when roles are clear. Now, I will say this, the reason why the hybrid model worked for me in my previous salon is because the stylist started out commission. There were a couple of scenarios, just two, where we had an independent stylist who came in from off the streets, but we went through a thorough and rigorous application process where we had a couple interviews. We really wanted to get to know that person and see, are we a good fit for you and are you a good fit for us? And it was amicable. Those people were really into educating. They were really passionate about being part of a group. They really missed like camaraderie. They wanted to be a part of unified, kind of society. They wanted to come to these meetings. And we always told them that meetings are optional. You cannot require a meeting, by the way, unless you're paying them for it. And you cannot pay a booth renter to come to the meetings, by the way. You can pay your employee to come to the meeting and tell them that it is required, but just strongly suggest it and make it an offer they can't refuse. Like, make it fun. Inject some humor, inject some games, have some ways that you can actually have team involvement, team projects together. Like, we would lay out a bunch of magazines and pull pictures from magazines and come up with our own lookbooks. And we would talk about trends and we would talk about things that were coming up and things that were out and all the changes that would happen in the salon. We would openly share things. We would have like fun activities where we would write like sweet things to our partner or draw, draw things out of a hat. And when you come up with those fun things, just think about like little mini parties or showers or things like that. It's just a nice way to bring everyone back together again and remind each other, like, this is why we're here. This is why we do what we do. And this is us feeding our time and attention into each other. Also, as a salon owner, I might suggest that you lay out a really nice buffet spread for everyone. Make it enjoyable for them. Bring some breakfast, bring some coffee, some snacks, some, juices. Make it enjoyable for them so that they want to be there. You don't have to require a meeting if you make it so much fun that people just want to come all the time. And that's really where the culture comes down to also. When it comes to hiring a commission or even shaking hands and signing the ink with a booth renter, treat your place as if it is sacred. And maybe that's a heavy word. I don't know. What's another word for sacred? As if it's just really important to you. Like, treat it like something that you really, really care about, because you do. I know you do. And don't let the fear or the scare tactics of, I just have to fill the chair so I can make money. Be willing to suffer for a little bit. Be willing to and be courageous enough to build with intention. And by all means, if you end up hiring or bringing someone on that is not good for your culture and they are toxic for your culture, then you have to uninvite them. I like to call it uninvite instead of fire. But uninviting somebody is simply you just stating and admitting the truth that you are not a good fit for one another, and you're letting them know that you don't align with cultural values. So it's very important that you go through those things. And if you don't know what they are, sit down and put some thought into it because it's really important. That's going to help build and shape and mold not just the culture that you create, but also the longevity of your business and how long people actually stay in it too. Okay, so now I always like to go into psychology, but I'm not a psychologist. Maybe I just daydream. I don't know. One of these days, I just wonder, like, is it going to be worth it? Maybe I go back to school and get my psychology degree or something. But anyway, this is something psychologically versus your autonomy versus control. So stylists crave autonomy, and then owners crave stability, and both kind of need one another, right? The stylist's fear is being tapped, and then the owner's fear is losing people. So sometimes owners tighten control and stylists escape prematurely. But sustainable salons aren't built on fear, they're built on clarity. If you're an owner, retention comes from value, not restriction. And if you're a stylist, independence, it requires systems, not just courage. So an example of this would be one of the things I learned in the commission bot model is I started to realize that everyone had different strengths. I mean, I didn't start to realize that. I always had known that. That's just the way things go. This is how life happens. Everyone has a different talent, has a different thing they can bring to the table. In my very first salon that I worked in, and I was an employee there, by the way, for 14 years, and we had benchmarks we had to hit because they would follow like kind of a principled salon template model where you had to hit all of these indicators in order to decide your level system. And it made me really despise the level system because if I would hit 3 out of the 4 benchmarks or exceed them, mind you, I would still get paid at the lowest level because my 4th benchmark wasn't performing as well. And that made me unmotivated and it made me feel kind of resentful because here I was at that time, I was bringing in $300,000 a year to that business. And I felt insulted that they wanted to keep me restricted at a certain level just because my, what was it again? My new client average was not up to par with what their standards were. Even though my rebooking percentage was through the roof, even though my retail service to my retail to service was through the roof, it didn't matter to them. All they cared about was that I had hit all indicators, and the indicators were created in standards that made no sense because I saw a high volume of clients, so therefore I had to be more exceedingly high in the other indicators to match it because it was a percentage. In any case, I don't want to go on a tangent about it, but the reason why I'm saying this and I'm telling you about this particular story is because when I created the tier structure in, my previous salon, the commission salon, one of the things that we were looking at is, well, what are everyone's strengths? And what are some weaknesses maybe? Who has a strength that the other person might have a weakness? And how can they all support one another? One of the stylists was really strong at social media. And not only was she strong in it, but she just enjoyed it. And that just so happens to coincide, by the way. If you're going to enjoy something, then you, by proxy, will be good at it. So, because of that, we decided it was a great idea to give her some extra hours where she got paid her average percent of what she brought in, paid hourly, in addition to what she did with her clients to run the social media account. I thought it was lovely. And it was such a fun way for her to both be empowered and feel as though she got to have kind of like a stake in this space. We had another stylist who was phenomenal at retail sales. So what she would do is she would, I asked her if she could talk about it at one of the meetings. I asked if she could sit in on some of the, the classes that we would do so that she could talk about it. And also, she got paid at a higher benchmark with retail because she did so well with retail. It seems as though it should be a no-brainer, but I don't know why it is that so many older commission models are aiming for these heights that is at somebody's lowest indicator. And not to say that someone shouldn't be focusing on maybe a weak link. There's always room for improvement with it. But I think it's really important that we don't stifle people and we don't try to create these like cookie cutter shapes in people because we're all very unique and we can all add value in our own ways. As a matter of fact, I'm writing a book right now, and it's probably one of my greatest challenges of my entire career because I'm trying to compile these 27 years of knowledge into one single book. And then I realized, well, don't put so much pressure on that. Just speak from your heart and talk about the most pain points that you've ever come across with every single stylist and salon owner. And surprisingly, there's a lot of things we have in common. But what's even more surprising is that in the process of being behind a chair, I have worked with countless creative businesses, people that own a gym, a daycare center, a baker that started a gluten-free bakery. It's really fascinating how the psychology, I guess, and again, I know I'm not a psychologist, dang it. I want to be, but what's interesting is that all of us has something very much in common, and that we are non-linear thinkers. That means we probably didn't do very well in school, and X plus Y did not equal Z to us. Sometimes we would start with Y and then we would find X and then we'd finally come to the conclusion. But sometimes we do things out of order. The type of work that we do is also nonlinear. We have busy seasons and we have lighter seasons, and we have growth seasons and we have seasons that we can rest. So, and we're also very emotional creatures. That's the reason why we are so good at what we do. We connect with people on a social level. We want to take care of people. We enjoy being around people, most of us at least. And that's what makes us good at what we do. But I'm getting off track right now. I think the main thing here is that we all have a lot more in common than we don't. And that is what I'm going to be writing about is running your business and not having it run you and having joy in your business. So I'm excited to share that more with you, and it won't be for another year. So don't hold your breath. I'm putting a lot of work into it, and I want it to be really good. I want it to be worthwhile, and I want to be proud of myself for it. So, okay, I digress. Now we're going to go into a couple of other things, like a quick little checklist. So before accepting any position, I want you to ask this. Am I W-2 or am I independent? Who sets my schedule? Who sets pricing? Who is setting the meeting requirements? Are they required? What education exists? Is this written down? Remember I was saying with the contract. And how do I leave? What happens to my clients? And does this match my season? So professional environments handle professional questions. If clarity makes them uncomfortable, that's data. That's something that you can utilize. The more you understand about the place you're about to enter as a stylist, the more you can see into the future, because you want to be in a place that cultivates and builds strong character in you, pushes you in a good way, supports you in a way that you are able to blossom and grow and become the best self of you, and is looking out for you. Don't be just attracted by the first salon that you see, or the salon that's closest to your house, or a salon that's really pretty on the exterior. Understand that you're also interviewing the salon owner just as much as they're interviewing you. And for salon owners who are on the other side, be diligent about the questions you ask. Don't be afraid to ask them to come in multiple times for an interview or shadow. Shadow opportunities are wonderful. I always offer shadow opportunities. As a matter of fact, I'm doing something very different in my salon. I didn't even talk about this type of model. So I have a boutique salon now, and I've been running it for about a year. What's interesting about this model that's very different than the model that I had previously is that I'm taking all the concepts and extracting all of these years of having an apprentice program, and I'm combining it into a mentorship package. So I'm doing a mentorship hybrid program with these independent stylists. There's only one catalyst. Most of the stylists that have entered are brand new stylists, and that's very unusual. Most stylists don't start out independent. And if you are listening to this and you're like, well, I did, then you're the exception. You are. You're brilliant. If you're able to do that, then that hats off to you. And I'm wearing a hat, so hats off to you. But the main thing is that most people are fed the lie that you have to work for a commission salon for about 1 year or 2 years or whatever to gain the experience and to gain the clientele in order to become independent. That's not a way to start out your career. That doesn't feel good. That you have to essentially put in the time and work for someone else in order for you to get to the thing that you actually want to do. No, you can do it all at the same time, but the problem is that it does require strong mentorship. And that is something that I can and will and want to do. I'm in a season of my life now that I am pulling back the reins a little bit on the clients that I'm serving, and I'm now wanting to pass the torch on to the next gen stylist. I'm taking a hard look at the landscape of how our industry has been shifting and changing. And I'm seeing now that there are people that are really dying to be independent and they're willing to put their hat in the ring. They're willing to get down in the trenches. As long as you guide and protect them and you hold true to the honor of what you say you're going to do. What's required for that, however, is that you have to be willing to spend time with that person to nurture and grow them, that you have to be willing to think outside the box to help market to new clients, that you have to be willing to put the hours into posting on your salon and having them as a collaborator and maybe even putting an ad out. That also has to require you being forgiving on the rent. Um, to me, I would rather invest myself and not requiring somebody to pay for the chair of what I deem valuable. If I know that I'm investing in them, they're going to stick with me longer. They're going to stay in this space. They're part of the cultural ecosystem. It's very possible that we can get to such extreme heights that it really challenges me as an educator, and it also helps me amplify my message, that I can show this playbook to other salon owners and they can do the same for themselves, or that I can cultivate an entire, subsect of other hairstylists that can actually open up their salons sooner or get started with their dreams sooner instead of having to put their dreams on the back burner. I'm kind of tired of the norm where there's like a narrative that, well, I had to do this XYZ and I slaved away and I had to assist and I didn't get to eat and I worked this many hours and like that sucks. I'm sorry you had to go through that. You know what? I did too. I did. I worked past the shift that I was supposed to. I came in on days, off days because I was asked to. I worked 9 hours on my feet. I had no breaks, no lunch. And I wouldn't want to put somebody else through that. That's not okay. And that was kind of the norm back 27 years ago. I mean, I need to stop talking about how long I've been doing this. It's making me sad. Anyway, there is no superior model, I think, is really what it comes down to. That commission isn't small. Booth rent is not elite. Hybrid isn't modern. These are tools. And then choosing the one that supports your current season, that helps you pivot and you can adjust, you can evolve, and clarity protects you. So education is really there to empower you, and professionalism elevates the industry. That's what we are building here. I really want to invite you into the SSA Lab, which is our membership. It's, in my opinion, super affordable. Even if you just join for a month and you see what it's like, just to dip your toe in the shallow end, try it out. We're here to support you every step of the way. I just want to encourage you to dream big, set goals, take action, and I'll see you next week. Today's episode is sponsored by Pharmagel, a clean and sustainable skincare line of over 35 years that commits to using safe and natural ingredients to deliver effective results. Visit pharmagel.net and use code SSA15 to earn 15% off your happier, healthier skin.